Tipperary? Will Tip win after a hard fight from the Northern men, and that's the way most people would see it? Or could Antrim possibly take the Liam McCarthy Cup north of the border? Well, here it is, the famous cup first presented to Bob McConkey, the captain of the Limerick team in 1921. Will Kieran Barr become the 69th captain to accept the cup on All-Ireland final day? Well, they'll be travelling across the border in their thousands all over the weekend to see if he can. And reporting from Antrim in their bid for glory is Mick Dunn.
This is the border which separates many segments of Irish life, but not most sports. 29 years ago, Down footballers brought the Sam Maguire Cup across this border for the first time. Also in 1961 and again in 1968. But the Liam McCarthy Cup for hurling has never crossed over into the 6 counties. Indeed, that trophy has never come anywhere near the whole province of Ulster. But now there's a possibility of that happening this week, because Antrim could make hurling history on Sunday. Pat McGarry, you were there in 43 when the last played in the All-Ireland final. What do you remember of that?
Went to Crook Park to play Cork and all delighted, but we find they're too good for us. But I hope this team will do much better.
Were you all very much overcome by the appearance in the All-Ireland final against the great Cork team?
Oh yes, we were. They're a great side. I was playing against a great player that day, unfortunately, Mick Kennefick. It was too many for me.
Now, do you think the present lads will be nervous when they go there on Sunday week?
No, I don't think so. They got more training than we've got. We got very little training. These boys are well prepared for it, and I think they'll do a good job to start from the very beginning.
Well, now, in your day, there was no such thing as a manager, there was no such thing as a physio or team doctors or anything like that.
No team doctors, but we had a manager, Mr. McFadden and Sean McKeown was in charge of us, you know. But we had to train ourselves. They were just there with us at the time.
Well, did they bring you together at all before the final?
Fortnight, we stayed up in Belfast for a fortnight before the final.
Yeah.
So we had to do our own training, but they were there to look after us. But
so these fellas will be a lot fitter, will they?
very fit, yes. Oh, they get everything. They're well trained, well prepared. I wish them the best.
Kevin, you must be very happy seeing Antrim back in a hurling final.
I am indeed. It was the best performance I've seen for many a time, and I was delighted to see them back after all these years.
Donald, what about you playing, in fact, in the same position as your father played in 43?
Well, I didn't realise until during the week when I read it in the paper that I was playing the same position. I always thought my father played midfield. But it's a coincidence. Hopefully I'll be able to go one better.
Do you think that they might do better than you did, Kevin?
I would say so. They're a fitter, and I would say they're a better all-round team than our team.
You think they have more hurling skills?
They have. They have a good deal more hurling skills, I would say. And I don't want to bring it up, but they're not kind of super Cork team as we played.
Well, maybe they're playing a super Tipperary team.
Well, maybe I'm prejudiced, but Cork team won 5 All-Irelands in a row.
What about all the stories that when you beat Kilkenny up here in the semi-final, that you gave them such a great time on the Saturday that it was easy to beat them?
That was all wrong too. That was all wrong.
All these lies, are they?
They're all lies. A lot of people like Leinster hurling mightn't just have been as good that year because they were saying it was a fluke and it was all that. And that was the first time afterwards that Ulster entered on a Railway Cup team and beat the pick of Leinster.
Right. Donald, do you find, because you had a father who was a star at both games, hurling and football, that people are saying to you, you know, oh, you'll have to be as good as your father, or you're not ever going to be as good as the father?
Oh, well, if everybody I meet tell me that I'm not going to be as good, but I just go out and do my best. If I'm as successful as my dad, or even half as successful, I'd be happy.
Well, I mean, he was one of the greatest of all time. Now, you have a long way to come to match up to that, haven't you?
I have indeed, from all accounts, you know, no matter where I travel in Ireland, people are talking about him.
You're too young to have ever seen him play.
I've never seen him play. It's one of my regrets, I suppose. I've never seen my father play.
But you must have grown up in this atmosphere, because I know he's a fanatic. Even still at this stage of his life, he's at a match every night if he can find one.
Oh yes, if he's not at a match, if there's no matches on, he goes to training. I think he's the only man that turned up to every roster training session when we were training for the All-Ireland final.
Now, he says he enjoyed the experience of playing in the All-Ireland final. Do you think you're going to enjoy it?
Well, I think I will. Any time that I've been in an All-Ireland final, you're sitting watching it in the stand and you say to yourself, it'd be great to be there, you know. Usually it's only a dream, but this year we're there, you know.
What about all the hype and everything, all the supporters saying, just as what you've said yourself, you know, here we are in an All-Ireland final, us fellas coming up, newspaper men taking photographs and everything.
Well, I think it's important to be sort of keep level-headed, think about the game, you know. As soon as you go away, we'll be back there training hard again, so we'll be brought down to earth, let's say, by our manager, you know.
Kevin, you're going to feel very proud watching him in Croke Park, aren't you?
Indeed. It's great.
Just about the quarter.
Jim Nelson is the Antrim trainer, and he is the man mainly responsible for shaping Antrim into a winning team. As Desi Donnelly knows only too well, he's also the man who pushes them to peak fitness, and that includes goalkeeper Niall Patterson.
It's terrible to say going into your first All-Ireland, you're the veteran of this Antrim team.
Well, I've been around the game a long time, right enough, since '78 now, but it's a great honour. I think it's everybody's ambition to play an All-Ireland final, and hopefully on the day we'll turn out the right result.
Did you think it was your last chance, or that you were on the way out when they moved you back? Because you're playing in the forwards one year in an All-Ireland semi-final, you're corner back the next year.
Well, in fact, whenever I started in '78, I started at left half-back and played there for 3 years, and then, well, due to maybe the lack of forwards or whatever, I was moved up front, and consequently stayed up there for a few years, and now I'm back in the defence.
Well, now, to somebody like yourself, being on the team for 11 years, it must be all the more important and more satisfying to you to get to a final.
It's very satisfying, as I say. I think it's everybody's ambition to play in one, and obviously whenever you've been about so long, you wonder if it's ever going to happen, and thank God it has happened this year.
Because the younger fellas wouldn't remember the lean years, but you certainly do.
I remember the lean years. I remember like winning the B Championship and then turning out against Galway in the quarter-final and maybe getting beat by 20, 25 points.
And there were even years when you didn't win the B Championship.
There was 3 years in a row we didn't win the B Championship. That's really how bad we were, or how good the opposition was.
But then you came into the championship itself, and you gave a fright to a few teams. The first one was Cork.
Yes, we scored 124 against Cork, and well, nobody beforehand gave us a chance, but that day the 6 forwards just seemed to click, and everything that was stuck went over the bar, and we did give Cork a few fright that year. Maybe if we had stopped 1 or 2 of the Cork goals, we could have been in the final that year.
Yeah. And then, of course, the following year in Dundalk, you gave an even bigger fright, a whale of a fright to Kilkenny.
Yes, we led Kilkenny most of the way back to about the last 12 minutes or so until they got in front. I think maybe lack of experience in some of our parts that day cost us the game. It was a good team performance that day. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to last the pace. The extra 10 minutes at the end of the game just told on us.
Yeah, of course, that was a factor, that you were playing all your matches in the National League, which were 60 minutes, and then you'd come into a semi-final, and you'd have to play that extra 10 minutes into 70 minutes.
That's correct, yes. The extra 10 minutes, it possibly told on us against Kilkenny that year. The fact that the extra 10 minutes in a game now is a long time.
Yeah. Now, nevertheless, after that Kilkenny game, people really started to sit up and take notice that Antrim were on the way back, in fact, and that you were now a force to be reckoned with.
Yes, indeed. From about 83 on, we were always thereabouts in Division 2 of getting promoted, and we usually finished third every year up until the year before last when we gained promotion. And this year, the fact that we did beat Offaly to avoid relegation and stay in Division 1, I think a lot of people have sat up and took notice of us.
How important was getting into the first division? Because I remember when I was up here talking to you last year and to Jim Nelson, that was the ambition, to get in among the top teams, the elite of the game.
Obviously, whenever you're playing Division 1, you're playing first-class teams. You have 7 games against first-class teams, and if you get into the playoffs, obviously you have more games. The fact that this year now we're in Division 1 again, we'll have 4 home games, it'll be a big boost to us here.
Do you think that had something to do with the fact that you were able to beat Offaly in the semi-final?
Well, basically this team played throughout the National League with one or two minor changes, but we've got to know each other's style, and we're a close-knit community now, yeah. And I think the team's just grown in strength.
Well, you're a close-knit community in the Hurling Glens anyhow, aren't you?
Oh, we are, yes, indeed. There's a pocket here in the Glens, surely, that play hurling only. There's no football or anything played with just the hurling.
Well, some of the rest of them have said they're really enjoying it, and I'm sure you, after your 11 years, you're enjoying it.
Oh, I'm indeed. I'm enjoying it very much so this year, and as I say, you're never too old as long as you're enjoying it.
It's a great team performance. To go to Crook Park and semi-finals, All-Ireland semi-finals, league semi-finals, whatever. It's great to be there. It's a great occasion to play there in any game at all. All the players enjoyed it immensely because they won, but they enjoyed last year's semi-final against Tipperary as well.
I'm sure you've enjoyed the memory of the 2 goals as well. What do you remember of them now at this moment?
Well, the first was a long ball from James McNaughton out of defence. Brian Donnelly, myself, Eugene Coughlin, Aidan Fogarty was and under the dropping ball. I just pulled it back out of the way, Aidan Fogarty blocked, and I topped it in. That was the way it happened, the first one.
And that set you up for the second one, because you were flying then.
That set me up for the second one. It was Kieran Barr and Brian Donnelly. I moved down the right-hand side, Brian knocked it across, and I just got on the end of it again.
Well, it's been a successful year for you so far, because you had a heap of goals against Galway on the All-Star trip in America.
That's right, but that was, again, down to teamwork again. Great players. When you're playing along with great players, it makes the job easier. You know what they're doing, they know what you're doing, and that kind of stuff. It's all a team game, you know.
Do you see yourself with a realistic chance
of winning the actual final?
Yeah.
Well, Mike, from my hurling from underage level, I have yet to get into a match thinking that I'm not going to win.
Well, I suppose there wouldn't be much point in you going down if you thought that.
And I think all the players are the same, and definitely, as somebody said before, there's only 2 teams from All-Ireland, and we're one of them.
Jim, what's life been like since the semi-final? Has it made a difference to the ordinary people's everyday life?
I would think it has. I think it has given people a sense of joy and the enthusiasm that's surrounding the team as well. It has also given a lift to us and to the people of Antrim, and I think everyone now is preparing and looking forward to the celebrations of an All-Ireland final.
So there has been a buzz around the county in the last few weeks.
Oh, there certainly has. I mean, like, I've never seen as many buntings or saffron and white flags and trappings in all my life, and it's just great to see it.
And people turning out at training sessions to have a look at the lads.
That's something we certainly weren't used to before, because we would have trained religiously on our own without any spectators, and it's nice to see someone now coming around to see how we're doing.
But what about older people, and you would know a lot of them who would have been involved in hurling all their lives? They must be particularly overjoyed.
Yes, I mean, it's been so long since Antrim have contested an All-Ireland, 46 years, so there's a lot of people that don't even remember anything about the last final, and particularly with no television being around in that particular days, then it's great to see the hype, and they sort of feel that they're associated with it.
Now, sadly, there would be a lot of the population of Antrim wouldn't have any interest in the game. They probably wouldn't even know that Antrim are playing in the All-Ireland final.
Well, I mean, that's synonymous of the times we're living in and where we live. But we've been isolated for so long and done whatever we had to do independently of most other counties that it's no strange now to us to follow on our own.
Well, for several years, some of the Tipperary players have had to furrow on their own too. While Tip may now be back on top again, well, they've spent some of the past 18 years plodding along in a hurling wilderness, often buried in the depths of Division 2. And those are days that some of the older players remember only too well. Bobby Ryan, the Tipperary captain, you've been there in the All-Ireland final before. Of course, it's nothing new to you, but still you haven't won it, so winning it will be something new.
Well, hopefully if we can pull it off this time. As you said, we've been there before, and we know what the big pressure games are all about. We've been there in the semi-final last year as well, or the semi-final 2 years ago, the final last year. We still haven't brought home the bacon, as it were, so hopefully there's just one fence to go in Antrim or that fence to jump.
There must be a particular excitement about all of this for somebody like yourself who's been there in the bad times, let's say, with Tipperary hurling.
Yeah, it seems like I've been through it all already in previous interviews, and I still haven't got that medal that I started out in the early 80s with Fox and Nicky and Donny O'Connell and the lads. So, yeah, it is special coming up at this stage. It's the final, and it's I suppose the end of a year's hard work, and for me it's the end of about 9 years hard work. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the game, and hopefully everything will go well on today and I can get that elusive All-Ireland.
Speaking of things going well, Tipperary will be the hot favourites, Antrim regarded as no-hopers, and that could be a dangerous thing for Tipperary.
Yeah, I suppose really more so from the supporters' point of view. If as captain, I suppose my biggest job or my biggest fear would be complacency, and my job as captain would be to guard the players against that. And I think within the camp there is, we have to be realistic. We are, supposed to be 8-1 on, and those kind of statistics are ridiculous. supporters are getting carried away. There's big celebrations organised and everything, and you know, I'm just trying to keep the players and myself included with our feet in the ground. And we know we've got a difficult job on hand, and Antrim are going to come out with everything, you know, and they have nothing to lose. They've got 31 counties behind them, and it's going to be a difficult game for us. But complacency I don't see as a problem. Within the camp we've got players, a very strong panel, and every player wants to be involved. So apart from the game itself, we know that there's guys like Colin Bonner and, you know, Brother Aidan on the bench, John Kennedy. You know, all these guys are either All-Stars or have had All-Stars before. So that kind of pressure is there for every player that's starting, you know.
Of course, Pat Stakelum was there with Tipperary in 1949, and he's your uncle.
That's right, yeah. Probably a great connection with the family. Pat Stakelum was captain of the 49 team, and my father and my uncle Ned were both members of the 50 and 51 team. So there is a great tradition there.
Is there a matter of pride there for Bobby Ryan, the fact that your father, your uncle, were involved in Tipperary teams successfully?
I think there's something there, and every player that goes out for Tipperary has they want to emulate players that went before them. I was probably fortunate, or maybe unfortunate, to have a parent and two uncles that played with Tipperary, and I'd certainly like to follow in their footsteps, and there is that little bit of an added incentive for me to do well. And certainly if I can captain an all-Ireland Tipperary team, well, the old man can go home and sit in the corner.
Sometimes, Ken, being in that goal can be the loneliest place in the world.
Well, it sure can, you know. You go through games when maybe 20, 30 minutes elapses, maybe a whole first half before you get a puck at the ball. So maybe you go in at half time and you're not really satisfied that you're really in the game at all. So you go into the second half, you have to readjust, you have to full concentration again, you know. So it's all a new ball game. But you have to cope with this, and I think concentration is the main thing, you know.
Every other player out there in the field, he wants to be part of the game. He wants the action to come his way. Does the goalkeeper feel the same way about it?
Of course we do. We're fully involved in the game. Even I think your concentration is so much so that you can even see your corner forward missing a goal or scoring a goal. You know what's happening up at the other end. So you're concentrating fully, and you hope that when the ball comes, it'll be the right type of ball to get you into the game, you know.
Does a goalkeeper read the game more closely, do you think, than other players, because you can stand back a little bit from the action?
Oh yeah, we'd get a lot of slagging in training, the goalkeeper's getting it handy in that. But it's a totally different type of game, and you're against the ball, they're playing against an opponent really, you know. So my opponent is the ball, so I have to beat him.
When that sliotar occasionally hits the net, do you blame yourself? What attitude does a goalkeeper take to that?
Well, of course, after every game you analyse how you played, and funnily enough, like sometimes when you win, maybe 2 or 3 goals go in, and you wonder, was I to blame? And usually with your full back line, you analyse the whole situation. Was the full back line to blame? Was I to blame? But amazingly enough, you know, you could let in 4 goals and have a great game, and let in none and know that you weren't really in top shape, you know.
Challenged by John Heffernan. And there's a shot. Oh, a good save as well. A great save by Ken Hogan.
Well, one member of the Tipperary set up in a somewhat different position to the rest. That's the team physical trainer, Phil Conway. Now, he's a Dubliner, a former Irish international athlete, a physical education teacher in Dublin, and apart from the fact that he went to school in Rockwell College, well, he has no other real connection with Tipperary hurling. Well, a chance meeting between some of the Tipperary mentors and the former rugby international Ollie Campbell brought Phil Conway's name into the conversation, and he soon found himself standing on the pitch at Semple Stadium one March evening, looking at a bunch of unfamiliar faces. So, where did he go from there?
Well, in the very initial stages, I came down to Semple Stadium, and I'd never been here before, and it was pitch dark and it was very wet. But we had to establish a starting base, and we had a form of fitness, our fitness evaluation, which after about 10 minutes I knew the score, that a lot of work could be done, should be done, and had to be done. And then from there we went indoors, and to try and help the players understand and accept what was going to happen, we watched videos about sports training and how to train correctly. I think that's the major thing.
The methods that you employ are not radical in terms of sports fitness, but I would put it to you that a lot of inter-county GAA teams don't employ them. So I suppose you're pioneering to some degree in what you're doing here.
I don't 100% agree with you there, Michael. I think that the football teams have a strong relationship with people in physical education, and I think the hurling teams are going that way. But probably what you're referring to is that management, whoever takes over a team in modern times, could be wanting to train the team like they did in past years, but that's really not good enough anymore because, for example, on the Tipperary team, you've only one farmer, whereas 20 years ago, when our coaches or selectors would have been playing, there might have been 10 or 15 farmers, and these people had a good degree of basic natural fitness, and also would have been playing hurling and football. I think people did both games at that time, and also they would have cycled to Thurles every night for training, if there was training. So that's the difference.
How have the players reacted to your training methods?
Everything that they were asked to do in training, they performed well within them. When you're training aside for the first year, I don't think that you would give them too much or more than they could handle psychologically. No fun for them if they put in a lot of hard training and were very fit and weren't able to play or went down in that area. In Tipperary, what counts most is winning, and I know that from just the vibes and the feeling around here.
If you could stand back just a little bit from your involvement with Tipperary, do you think they're going to win the All-Ireland?
Well, the way I see the match or the contest is it's a 50-50 situation until a point has been scored. Now, people may call the team favourites. I don't believe in that. I believe that until you outscore your opponents with more scores at the end of the day, then you deserve to be champions. It's what you do on the day.
Babs Keating, you're nearly there. You've nearly got your hands on the Liam McCarthy, but there's 70 minutes of work to be done yet.
There is, and if you see the efforts the lads are making out there behind us tonight, Michael, they know there's 70 minutes of work to be done, and we've been telling them this all the year. Our approach from the first round against Limerick, we have 4 matches to play, and Sunday is the last fence, and that's our approach.
When you set out in this championship campaign, you were hoping you'd be in the All-Ireland final yourself. I'm sure you never expected to see Antrim there.
Funny we gave them a chance, Michael. You know, Theo English, of all of us, has said all the year, I bet Antrim will be in this All-Ireland. And we've kind of sneaking respect for them. Like, they produced it in semi-finals for the past 3 years, and it was no surprise to a lot of us that they produced it again in this year's semi-final.
And of course you know them from last year's semi-final as well.
We do. They gave us a hell of a fight 12 months ago. They played really well. Like, we respect a lot of the Antrim players. Like, they have a few exceptional hurlers. I've told Alcon McFetridge and Cian Barr, anytime they want a job in Tipperary, I think they'll get one.
Nonetheless, Tipperary are the raging hot favourites for this All-Ireland. Does that worry you? Are you afraid that that pressure might make your players freeze on the day?
No, it doesn't worry me. It's a position I love to be in. I love to be back in red hot favourites, provided they do everything prior to the event, whether it is a dog or a horse or a hurler, provided they do everything right prior to the event. I think we are doing everything right to guarantee that the favourites tag is going to come up on Sunday.
You have put 3 years into the management of this Tipperary team. They've been a good 3 years, but the Liam McCarthy will be the icing on the cake. Do you feel that, as a lot of people say, it's Tip's destiny?
Maybe so. I don't go for that at all, Michael. You get out of sport, out of life in general, what you put into it. And we've put an awful lot of effort into this squad. The lads have put an awful lot of effort into it themselves. And it was some consolation listening to Pat Statham in a radio interview some weeks ago, when you recall the events of the early 50s when Cork and Tip were hard at it. And he recalled that Cork might have won 6 All-Irelands, or Tip might have won 6, or 1 none. Now, that's how close it was between Tip and Galway for the last 3 years, and that's the reality. We might have won the last 2 All-Irelands and gone for 3 in a row, but for Galway.
When you were playing your hurling, it was nothing strange to see Tipperary in All-Ireland finals and to see Tipperary as champions, but when you won last in 1971, I'm sure you never thought it'd be 18 years and the Liam would still not be here in Thurles.
Well, like I've said to so many people since then, if I were to say after walking out of Croke Park in 1971 that we'd go 18 years, I know they'd have me certified and maybe committed to St. Luke's sometime along the way.
But the message for the All-Ireland final for Antrim is, Antrim, you'll have to wait another day.
Well, it was only coming down today that it occurred to me. the friendship that the hurlers of Antrim and the hurling people in Antrim provide to us all. Like, I've been up there a number of times in the last couple of months even, and they more than cross the line when it comes to the hand of friendship. And I suppose there would be nobody more sorry for Antrim than the Tipperary people if we're lucky enough to win on Sunday. But having said that, it's first things first here on Tipperary at the moment.
Well, that's a particularly busy and important weekend. In actual fact, I suspect the All-Ireland hurling final might just even slip into second place, because All-Star forward Kieran Barr gets married this afternoon to Meath girl Lynn Carlin. Well, earlier in the week, Kieran took time out to talk to Mick Dunn in Belfast's Andersonstown.
Rossa pitch is just 5 minutes up the road here, so as a child you would have come up here for messages, gone to the butchers or something. It's a very busy area because of the shops, and the traffic gets concentrated here as well, so that it is a busy little place.
Was it always as busy?
It always was, I think, even before the Troubles or whatever. Like, it's just a natural place to shop for people to come to. So the Andersonstown Road is this strip of road that we're walking past now, so it's very busy.
And we're just passing the leisure centre, and you mentioned you were an international water polo figure at one stage, and you would have swum there, would you?
Yeah, the club that I played for, Cahill, trained there quite regularly when it was open, and it was a great boon for people in the area because the facilities are tremendous there, I must admit, and it was a great facility for the area because it's quite deprived. People use it an awful lot.
The Troubles really weren't as bad when you were growing up, weren't they?
Well, I grew up in the 70s, which was probably the hottest time.
Yeah,
it's quieter now than it was then. I went to school at the bottom of the Falls Road in St Finian's primary school, and we used to take days off because of bomb alerts and things like that, and I grew up with a lot of guys from that area, and I thoroughly enjoyed it now when I was a child. You don't really think about it when you're so used to it.
Does it cut across the life of the youngsters nowadays in any way at all? Say your club members.
It doesn't. No, you have to live with it. Basically, the freedom of being in Dublin, I would say, where I'm moving to soon, would be a little bit alien to me. You're used to being stopped by people. You're used to being checked now and again on the road. It doesn't happen very often, but it is an intrusion.
What about Croke Park now, going down for the final? What about Tipperary?
Tipperary are a very good team. They're obviously hot favourites for the match.
Free quickly taken by Declan Carr, across to the totally unmarked English. Sylvie a little slow in closing him down, and that will do English very nicely as he gets his first point of the match. Good ball down to Cormac Bonner, great catch. He's got people moving inside, holding on his own. And that's a good one. Driven in smartly towards Fox. Pat Fox once again, getting through. A goal! Jerry McInerney back. Watching two Tipperary players collide in their enthusiasm to get the ball, beaten brilliantly by Cormac Bonner. It's on to Nicky English, and he puts it over the bar with a flawless finish.
If they peak for the final, it'll be us that'll feel the brunt of that, but I think we're going to peak for the final as well, so I'm looking forward to a tremendous hurling match, and obviously a victory for Antrim.
You and the rest of the Antrim team would never have had any doubt about your hurling ability.
No, but as I said before, we haven't won anything, so you can't be surprised that people do doubt you. You have to actually see it to believe it. And now that we're in All-Ireland final, people will start to believe that we are a good side, and we are a good side, a good hurling team. We're better than Offaly, obviously. We're better than any team in Leinster because we beat the Leinster champions, and we're there on merit.
The question, as we now have just 19 minutes left in this match, will the Glens of Antrim be singing to the sounds of victory tonight? Alton McBetridge has a bit of space, and he capitalises on it. That is a marvellous score. Paddy Corrigan not getting it. This is Aidan McCarry. It's high. It is beautiful. Definitely the Glens of Antrim are alive. He's going for his third point, and he's got it. Ger Coughlin first to the ball. It delays with it as Brian Donnelly comes in. Gets actually Kieran Barr. Getting it inside this time to Brian Donnelly. Antrim fighting for every ball. Offaly just not able to get their act together. Ball comes in talking McBetridge. Yes! Magic McBetridge. A goal for Antrim, which puts them 2 goals in front. This could well be the shock of the year. Dare I say it, the shock of the decade. Alton McBetridge has done it for Antrim. Watch this again. Kieran Barr sent it into Brian Donnelly. A high ball, right in around. In came Alton McBetridge, on the ground, one knee, hit it in, and bang, Antrim 2 goals in front. Big lad causing a problem for Ger Coughlin.
Mrs. Barr, I believe in fact you're a Dublin woman. How did you get up here to Belfast?
Well, it all happened at a wedding. I was invited to a wedding in Dungannon, and that's where I met my husband there in 1960. So we got married in 1961.
Obviously for the last few weeks there's a great buzz in the family now with a son playing in the most important hurling game of the year.
Yes. Well, it has been a very exciting year since Kieran got the All-Star on the 3rd of February. And since then, like, it has been a great buzz in the house.
The lads I know are interested in swimming. Did they get that from you? Did you encourage them?
Well, yes. I encouraged them from they were practically 6 months old.
Did you encourage them to take part in every sport, hurling and football in fact?
Well, it was more of an influence of a man called Paddy Carabine, belonging to the Rossa Club. Actually had the influence on me, and I passed the influence then to these lads.
So living here in the Falls, that would be the nearest club to you, would it?
It was, yes. Rossa was the nearest club. Prior to that, it was Sarsfields, actually. A man, kidding, joking, at Killarney races, signed him up at 4-year-old, a man called Clark. He was at the races with Geordie McCann and Eddie McCann, Francie McCann.
So do you mean to say they've been playing since 4 years of age?
Well, he had them signed up at 4, you know, but it was only a joke, you know, their age. And from 9-year-old, we've been taking them to Cork and to a place called Loda, run by the brothers of Charity. They facilitated us with dormitory, food, everything we needed.
I know I met you at the Rossa Club last year when you were in the middle of a whole stack of youngsters, and that is a very important policy in the club, isn't it?
It is. It
and in other clubs, in fact.
It happened again this year, but Rossa especially have contributed to probably coaching more so in Belfast than any other club. I think other clubs would admit that. There were 50, 60, 70 kids there again this summer for 6 weeks this time. It was only 5 last year, and they thoroughly enjoyed it again, I think. And that has been the foundation that myself and my brothers have used in our careers, sporting wise. I think except for injury, the other 2 guys might have had a high profile as me, and I've just been lucky because I didn't have those injuries.
So you remember the encouragement you got when you were a juvenile?
Oh yeah, as my father says, going to Cork, playing against kids from St Finbarrs, playing against kids from Blackrock. Justin McCarthy coached me when I was 11 years of age. You can't have any better start than that. Cork in those days were the team. There's no doubt about that. And I thoroughly enjoyed those trips down south, and there was good camaraderie. And those guys are playing together on the senior Rossa team now. So
I believe you're all interested in water polo and swimming, and that you have excelled at water polo as well.
Oh yeah, Kieran was on the Irish team. He's on the national team, you know. He was pretty good. He's pretty good in the water, you know, Kieran.
Remember you're Kieran? International then. Have you given it up?
I gave it up about 2 years ago, and I think it actually helped then the hurling because I stopped playing water polo. Yeah. But I thoroughly enjoyed water polo. It's a tremendous game. Like for instance, I was keenly watching Gary O'Toole's performance at the weekend in the European Championships. Something like that will do water polo's image a lot of good because, for instance, Matt Biondi, who swims for America, is now playing polo for America. It's a great game, and I thoroughly enjoyed it when I was playing.
Mark, being away from the county team, you'd be as realistic now as you could get. What about their chances?
Well, I think the talk in Antrim is basically it's going to come down to one line against another line. It's the Antrim full forward line against the Tipperary full back line. I think most hurling people in Ireland realise that there is a doubt over the Tipperary full back line. I think that goes without saying. Even I remember the sports stadium before the semi-final, a famous Tipperary man casting a little bit of doubt over their full back line. So we think we've got the best full forward line in the country, bar none. And if our full forward line play to their potential, we'll certainly be there at the end of the match.
Declan, did you ever think you'd see Antrim in a final?
Well, I thought after the Cork game, I think it was 4 years ago, was it? They played very well in that game. They were very unlucky, you know.
Jimmy Barry scored. The following year.
Jimmy Barry Murphy, yeah, destroyed us in the last few minutes, you know. And then they went on to play Kilkenny the following year, then Tipperary, and now played Offaly, and there they're through. Just a matter of time. I thought before they would make the breakthrough into the final, you know. I'm really pleased that they're there for a change.
Oh, but you have another big day coming up before the All-Ireland final. Kieran, in fact, is actually getting married.
That's right. Yes, okay.
Kieran's getting married to a girl called Lynn Carolyn from County Meath on the Saturday before the All-Ireland. So it's a bit of a hectic weekend for all of us.
Lots of preparations going on for that.
Lots of preparations going on. So hopefully now he'll be settled down on the day and play the good match.
So Kieran, Will the wedding help to keep your mind off the match in a sense for a while?
I don't really know. I was talking to a man in Bath yesterday, and he said that you have 2 big days, the wedding and the match. And he said, well, one's for life and the other one's forever. So I'll enjoy the All-Ireland final, and I'll enjoy the wedding as well. That's my attitude in life. Take one day at a time.
Success breeds success. It also seems to cause some players to blossom and to come into their own. Well, that's very true of this present Tipperary team. So much so that there is now fierce competition for places on that team. So that makes it all the more unusual when players from lesser clubs come through the system. Now, Nicholas English is the obvious example from the small Latin Cullen club, but Noel Sheehy can also take pride from holding his place on the Tip team. The village of Silvermines in South Tipperary, like many another rural village, one that is dominated by the parish church on the hill, and of course the local national school. Situated between Roscrea and Nina, Silvermines, like the rest of Tip, is looking forward eagerly to the final. Louise Morrissey may be the singing star of Tip, but there's no doubting who the sporting heroes are at the moment. And there's considerable pride in the fact that one of their own, Noel Sheehy, is part of that team. As Noel knows only too well, hurling fever has caught Silvermines. Even the village pump has been painted blue and gold.
Yes, certainly, Michael. It's our second time being in the All-Ireland final. And if it's anything like last year, it should be a great buzz around the place.
It must be a great thing for an intermediate club, as Silvermines is, to have a player on the county team in a place where there's obviously a lot of competition for places.
Well, I suppose certainly it would help if you were coming from a high-profile club, you know, a senior club. But here in the Mines we're only intermediate at the moment. So I suppose there's always pressure on you to perform when you go into training or perform on the big day to keep your name to the fore. Because we wouldn't get that many games in the year being an intermediate club. We wouldn't get the exposure the senior clubs would. So certainly there's always pressure, but I mean, competition is the spice of life.
So what has it been that has brought you to the notice of the selectors a couple of years ago?
Well, I think it goes back to underage hurling. I've been lucky enough to be on winning All-Ireland minor teams and under 21 teams. So I suppose my name has always been, you know, associated with those teams. So success comes from success. So I suppose I've been on a successful team. So you know, I brought it from there.
Well, now you're just a step away from winning that Liam McCarthy and bringing home an All-Ireland medal here to Silvermines. A lot of pressure on that, I should think, Noel.
Well, there's always pressure on All-Ireland final day. We've been there before, you know, and I suppose people say, you know, Tip are red hot favourites. I'm not looking at it like that. I'm looking at there's 3 years work gone into this day for me, and we've worked hard, the team as a whole, and we want to win. You know, I think we have to show that we want to win on the big day, you know, but certainly we have the hunger there and we want to win this All-Ireland.
Last year against Galway, at least you knew what you were up against, but you really don't know what to expect from these Antrim fellas.
Well, we've met them 3 or 4 times over the last couple of years. We've met them in last year's All-Ireland semi-final. We met them this year in the league. So we're pretty familiar with the Antrim players. They have a few new faces this year. But, you know, I know the forwards. We've been playing against the forwards. That's all I want to know. And I would say I know them reasonably well. I know what to expect from Antrim, you know. So on the big day, you know, we'll be well prepared for them.
Any fears that because people think that this All-Ireland is there for the taking for you, that Tipperary might freeze up on the day?
Yeah, well, certainly, you know, listening to people and talking to people, it isn't a help for people to come up and be saying, you know, you're going to win by, you know, you're going to run away with it. It doesn't happen like that. You know, it's 15 men against 15 or 24 against 24. And it's, you know, we've 70 minutes to win in All-Ireland. It's what happens in those 70 minutes. And it's up to us to make things happen for Tipperary hurling on Sunday.
Noel, there have been criticisms during the summer of the Tip backline. Now, obviously, that particularly concerns you. How would you react to that?
Well, I never listen to criticism too much. I just dwell on my own game. Usually when you start a championship, you're prone to more mistakes, and you eliminate those mistakes as you go on in the championship. And I would hope that you'll see little or no mistakes in the Tipperary backline on the big day itself.
Noel Sheehy hoping to become part of Tipperary folklore by helping to bring back the Liam McCarthy Cup after a long absence. Well, National Micro Publishing in Roscommon have come up with a lovely memento of some of Tip's past glories. Now, this montage of newspaper cuttings recalling some of Tip's greatest All-Ireland successes has been beautifully framed by the company, which, by the way, is run by the footballing Newton brothers in Roscommon. And they're going to present one of these to each surviving member of Tip's All-Ireland winning teams, which is a very nice touch. And our best wishes to Kieran and Lynn on their wedding day. Well, mind you, I suspect there are a few Tipperary people who are planning to at least partly spoil the weekend for them. And instrumental in that plan will be three Bonner brothers, hoping to make this a very special All-Ireland weekend for the family. The Rock of Cashel, within a stone's throw of which the Bonner brothers of Colum, Cormac and Connell were born, and where I met them and Cormac's son Turlock earlier this week. In the background, the Rock of Cashel, I suppose the most famous landmark in Tipperary, but maybe after Sunday, Cashel will become famous for the three hurling Bonner brothers, Connell, Cormac and Colum. I'm sure, Colum, you'd like it to be that way.
Hopefully, this time, well, it'll be next Sunday week actually. Hopefully we'll come home with the cup, and if not, it'll be a good hiding place for the three of us if we don't bring it back.
Cormac, for you, I would say this must be something particularly special as the elder lemon, let's say, on the Tipperary team.
Yes, it's like second chance education. It's always great to get a second bite of the cherry, and for me this really is a second bite because I was involved in Tipperary teams in the early 80s, and as I said, you know, to come back now and to be able to start playing an All-Ireland final in a week's time it's like a dream come true. But it'll take a lot of work, that's the only thing, you know.
Yeah. Connell, by contrast, you're the youngest of the brothers and you're also the youngest member of the panel, so I suppose you see it from a slightly different view. Do you hold the view that if you don't win this All-Ireland that there'll be other ones there for you?
Well, I remember Nola Dwyer in 71. He was more or less my age again, and he felt that way too, but sure, I have to take his example, like, and he was never there again. So take these chances that comes, you know, and hopefully come Sunday week we'll be there.
Cormac, a little bit about the Bonner family from Cashel here. It's a very big family and a very sporting family, obviously.
Well, the fact that there are 7 girls and 6 boys in the family, and in our situation, we can't be running to discos here or the pictures there every night of the week, so the only thing that we could do was to get out in the backyard and play football or take a few hurleys with us and play around that way, occupy ourselves like that. From a very, very early age, we were all very, very involved in sport. It started in schools, and both girls and boys, we were all played indoor soccer, handball, hurling, football, the whole works, you know. The band wasn't in our day. So, you know, it's a great thing to occupy ourselves by night. Like, Cashel's a very small town, there's not an awful lot to do except play hurling. And then to get involved and to get integrated into the town, the best way is to get involved in the sports. I played with Cormac, I suppose, for the last 3-4 years on the senior team, and Connell's been on it now for the last 2-3 years, and Brendan had been on it as well, and he'll be just more or less on the substitute. So between us, I'd say 5 of us played together, and we had no real success as such, but hopefully there's always hope every year.
Does it make a special bond between you, the fact that there are 3 brothers there on the Tipperary panel?
It is. I won't say it makes us more determined, like if we are on the actual team, but I'm sure if I was playing and Cormac was in full forward, I'd work as hard as I could, and maybe a bit harder if things weren't going great, you know, and I'd try and get the ball into him. But in general, it's a team effort, and we all play as well as we can on the given day. And if the 3 of us can combine well and help the team to win, well, it'd make it all the more better and more memorable.
Bobby Ryan back in the thick of that action. Connell Byrne with a lovely steal from a hesitant Kieran Delahanty. This is Connell Bonner again. Remember the fine point he got against Limerick? Well, marked down, then down is another. Bonner with his fine contribution.
Do you think the preparation has been right for this All-Ireland final? Are you happy that everything is as well as it could be?
Well, this is only my first year really with the TIP team, so I haven't anything really to judge it with. But I think everyone's going fairly smoothly, you know, and hopefully, like, we'll do it.
It would be a nice way to start off your first year on the senior side, wouldn't it?
It would be beautiful. Like, it's every young hurler's dream to play in an All-Ireland final and win a medal. Like, and it's a dream come true for something to happen so young. You know, at 19, like, I'm getting my dream. So it's a nice thing to happen.
Well, Cormac, a little bit older than 19, I'm sure you would also think it a nice thing if you could, I won't say finish your career with an All-Ireland medal, but certainly get it in now.
Well, time is running out, really, on my side. Yeah, it would be nice, because, like, Tipperary need success at this stage. We've been knocking on the door for a long time. 84 in the Munster final, they were in hard luck to be beaten by Cork. 85 again, and you know, you can only go on for so long. Like, there's a number of other players on the panel, like Bobby Ryan, Nicholas English, Pat Fox, Dooney O'Connell. All of these guys have been there for a long, long time, the last 10 years nearly, and they deserve success. Whether we're going to get success is going to depend on how we perform on the first Sunday in September. But yes, it's nice to go out on a winning note.
Remember, Jerry McInerney had judged it well, was taking it away, but watch the eyes of Bonner there. Great timing, super skills, and watch for English, as always. But he's now the free man in attack, remember, as Galway are down to 14 men. And that was a nice point.
Well, Colm, on the eve of the All-Ireland, there's great expectation, of course, but if it doesn't work out in Tipperary's favour and you've got to come back here again on Monday afternoon as losers, that must be a hard thing to take.
It would be very hard to take. First of all, from your own playing point of view, if you were playing and you actually lost, it would be a great disappointment. And then it wouldn't actually sink in. Then I just take my experience from last year, and you feel sorry for yourself and for the team, for the supporters. It would be a terrible disappointment. And from the experience we had last year, I'd hate to go through anything like that as we had. So hopefully we won't experience it this year.
Cormac, disappointment obviously, but I suspect there might be embarrassment too with there in a community like this.
Yes, from the point of view that Tip are on a loser on Sunday, no matter what they do. Like, they're going in on favourites. And then if they win, everybody says it's expected of them. If they lose, well, they're going to be castigated because of it. And with all due respect to Antrim, it's going to be a very hard battle tomorrow, and there's no doubt about it. We will have to fight to win just as much as they will have to fight. We both believe in ourselves. Each team believes that they have the ability to win, and just whoever comes out on top, and hopefully it will be Tip tomorrow.
Well, Conal, if it is Tip tomorrow, I'd imagine there'll be some great celebrations done down around here. The Rock will take second place for a while.
I was only 2 years old when we last won an All-Ireland, so for me, I don't actually know what it's like for Tipperary to win an All-Ireland, and the hype around the town is only amazing. Like, all talking about this has to be our year, and you're all talking about that way back in January, not just now that we're in the All-Ireland final. So I'd say the celebrations will go on for a while.
Known hurling families.
I'm in Borrisoleigh at Ballyroan House, the home of the Ryans, and the son of the house, Bobby, of course, will captain Tipperary in that All-Ireland tomorrow. Bobby barely remembers, as a 9 or 10-year-old, the last time Tipperary won an All-Ireland senior hurling title, 1971. Of course, Tip people were used to winning All-Irelands at that stage, 3 or 4 every decade, and there's never been a decade that Tip didn't win an All-Ireland, except the 1980s. Just imagine these boys and girls playing in the background have never had the privilege of seeing their native county win the Liam McCarthy Cup. So Bobby Ryan, there's a big onus on you tomorrow.
Big responsibility on all the players. We were talking earlier on about, it's been so long since Tip have won All-Ireland, and up to last year we hadn't even contested an All-Ireland. So it's been 18 years, and we've never failed to win an All-Ireland in a decade, and this is our last year to do it. There's kids around home. I mean, I barely remember the last time, although I was at the All-Ireland, I was only 9 or 10 years of age, so there's kids going around 17, 18 years, teenagers that don't ever remember Tip to win an All-Ireland. So I think it's something that the responsibility is on the players to rectify that situation.
Well, they say a team is as strong as its reserve bench, and you certainly have great strength in the reserves. Introduce me to the two men here with you.
Well, this is the man I took over the captaincy role from, Pat McGrath from Knockmore. A great friend right through the years, and has been a great friend to me, particularly in the last 3 months of support. And apart from everything else, a fabulous hurler and a great man, forward or back, to come in.
Well, he came up here to join us in stadium to wish Bobby the best of luck. So you might as well do it officially now.
Thank you very much, Pat.
And Pat, now you go on, and that's Bobby's brother there.
Bobby's brother Aidan here beside me. Aidan has been a member of the panel for the past couple of years, and a great hurler too, full of skill and determination. Never found wanting for anything, and I think if Aidan comes in tomorrow, he'll be one of the fellas that'll he'll bring something good out of him.
Yeah. Aidan, it's difficult to be a sub in a way, because you're hoping the team will do well, yet you're hoping somebody will play bad enough for you to get in.
I know, I spent the whole week talking to people about it, hoping to get in. It's a bit hard to wish that somebody will end up playing bad or get injured even just to give you a run. I suppose, yeah, you're kind of just hoping all the time anyway.
Two men here who are involved in Tipperary's 3 in a row, 49 to 51 inclusive. Pat Stakelum, the captain in 49, and Tim Ryan, one of 3 Ryans in the half-forward line in 51. Pat, it's been a long wait for your native county.
It sure has, Jimmy. We've had troubled times as far as hurling is concerned over the last 18 years, and the county was hungry for the ultimate success. With the Munster Championship wins over the last 3 years, it gave a great swing in the step to everybody in Tipperary, and I really mean that, because Tipperary and hurling, the people and hurling go hand in hand. It's an everyday topic, whether you're in a pub or at mass or at a trashing or whatever you're doing. Hurling is the topic for discussion, and we had only to talk about great players and great teams of other counties, and it was in a mysteriously sad state in Tipperary, but thankfully those lads have rectified that, and tomorrow we hope that we'll all be young again and all the fields will be green in Tipperary.
I have warned Bobby not to be complacent, and I have told him to tell his team to get in there and keep at it right through the full hour, because it won't be over until the final whistle. I dread Antrim. I have the utmost admiration for them. I have seen them playing against Offaly, and I've admired them tremendously. They're a great team, a wonderful team. And if they get going, and if Tipperary slacken, they're in trouble. But I think ultimately Tipperary will come out on top.
Note of caution there from the older Tipperary men, and we'll have to wait to see if it's justified. Meanwhile, George Hamilton has been north of the border to see Antrim's final moments before they departed for Dublin. So let's go to George Hamilton.
Really was a day when all roads in Antrim seemed to lead to Casement Park. Of course, the logistics of it meant that most of the team had to come from the Glens, and when their coach arrived, the reception had to be heard and seen to be believed. There's more to this than meets the eye. If you go back into my family tree, you'll find O'Neill's from the Long Fall above Glenarm, so I am a Glens man. And I was born on the right side of the Lagan at Belfast, so this is not just for show. These people around me have never experienced anything quite like it from all over the county of Antrim, but more particularly in Casement Park from Belfast, to savour this day and savour the whole weekend, the All-Ireland final of 1989. The quietest man in it all, though, appeared to be the Antrim manager, Jim Nelson.
Well, it's a pretty exciting time, and probably from my point of view, I've never experienced anything like this all the years that I was playing. So I think for a lot of these young people, it's going to be a great start to their hurling careers, the fact that they've been around a team that has reached the All-Ireland final, and hopefully maybe the All-Ireland finalists.
Any butterflies yet?
Slight, not too bad at this stage. Probably the worst time for me is the hour before the match, trying to get from the hotel to the ground. It's the prior to leaving the hotel I find is the worst part.
You seem to be the calmest man around here at the moment.
Well, I feel okay, you know. I mean, like, to be honest, I mean, like, if you're going in to do exams and you're having your homework done, you're inclined to be worried. We have our homework done, and all the talk and all the background work is already done, so we're confident enough.
Donald, good morning. Only Belfast man here, but I guess you feel at home.
Oh yeah, great.
What about this fact that you've making the journey without your captain, who's going to get married today?
But he'll be joined up with us.
How do you feel yourself?
Great. Surprised to see so many people here.
There's one thing for sure, your arm will get a good trim for tomorrow after all these autographs.
Maybe 2 weeks now.
You must be excited, but how nervous are you at this time?
I'm not sure. I'm regretting having to play. I would like to be a fan today. Going with this lot, enjoying myself. We're going to be locked away tonight and the crack will be in Collin Street. No, it'll be good to be a fan today.
There might be some crack tomorrow night for you.
I'll enjoy the crack tomorrow night. Don't you worry about that.
Croke Park may have seemed like 100 years away to these hurling fans, but right now it's just 100 miles down the road, and in a little over 24 hours it'll be Antrim in the All-Ireland final again. They can now really believe it. Antrim are on their way.
Really tremendous excitement.
15 years. The format is much the same as the men's game, but there is one significant difference insofar as some of the traditional weaker counties in Gaelic football have done remarkably well in the women's game. Last year it was Laois in the final.